Welcome back. Let's review the last session, session number 3. Last session we discussed eating disorders, then we discussed the ideas and factors behind sexual motivation. We looked at the optimal arousal theory, then we examined Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Then we had some examination of the need to belong or need for affiliation. We also discussed social networking and the impact of it. And then finally, we ended up with a discussion of need for achievement, as well as the impact of such needs have on us. And then finally, we looked at all the perspectives of motivation. Now we're discussing emotion. William James would state, and is quoted as saying, "We feel afraid because we tremble, sorry because we cry." This is indicating the key aspect of James Lang theory, body before thoughts. What we basically mean is this. The James Lang theory states that emotion is our conscious awareness of our physiological responses to stimuli. So as our body responds to certain things in the environment, then we start to figure out what our emotions truly are. So our body arousal happens first, and then the cognitive awareness and labeling of that feeling, I am angry, happens. So according to this theory, if someone makes us smile, we may then feel happy. Alternative view of emotion is the Cannon-Bard theory, simultaneous body response and cognitive experience. The Cannon-Bard theory asserts that we have a conscious cognitive experience of an emotion at the same time as our body is responding, not afterwards. So it's happening both at the same time. Our cognitive experience as well as our physiological responses to it. So the human body responses run parallel to cognitive responses rather than causing them. So they happen together simultaneously, and one does not cause the other. Adjusting the Cannon-Bard theory with some additional research, emotions are not just a separate mental experience. When our body responses are blocked, emotions do not feel as intense. So let's say, for example, you were able to mute somebody from being able to have a really uproarious laugh, okay, by taking some sort of medicine. And they see something that would make them humorous or laugh, but they can't do it. Therefore, the emotions that they're going to feel at that time may still be of enjoyment and what have you, but they will not be as intense. So, our cognitions influence our emotions in many ways, including our interpretations of the stimuli and things of that nature. Is that a threat? Then I'm afraid. So the idea here is that we have to make some sort of assessment of a potential threat. If it is seen as a threat, something in our environment, then we will feel afraid. If it's not seen as a threat, then we'll have a different emotion. Another perspective is Schachter-Singer two-factor theory. Here, the idea is that the emotion comes about with regard to the body's feelings plus a cognitive label. How do we label something? So the Schachter-Singer two-factor theory suggests that emotions do not exist until we add a label to whatever body sensations we are feeling. I face a stranger and my heart is pounding. Is it fear, excitement, anger, lust, or do I have too much caffeine? The label completes the emotion. The label completes the emotion. And until we have a label on it, we don't experience that particular emotion. So, in a study by Stanley Schachter and Jerome Singer in 1962, subjects experienced what they refer to as a spillover effect. When arousal was caused by injections of what turned out to be adrenaline, which will get your heart racing and things like that, the subjects interpreted their agitation to whatever emotion the others in the room appeared to be feeling. The emotional label spilled over from others. So imagine this, if you would. You sneak somebody an injection that will make their heart race a little bit, but they don't know that. And you put them in a room and you ask them to fill out a survey, a questionnaire about what they're feeling at the moment. In the room also will be people that work with the experimenter, and they may be acting very happy or very sad or very angry. And what they're able to determine is this: if they're acting very happy, the subjects filling out that survey who got the secret injection that would agitate them somewhat, they would perceive their emotion as being happy. And if they're in a room with angry people, more anger, and so on and so forth. So the spillover effect basically said that whatever was already in the room and whatever they interpreted those emotions that were already in the room as, those were the emotions that they tended to feel themselves, because they then saw a label they could use to put on what they were feeling. Other theories by Ledoux and Lazarus and others, we see that we can have emotions without awareness or thought. That sometimes emotions occur sort of like at an unconscious level, and they may cause us to respond in certain ways physiologically, but we may not know as to why. So the theory goes like this. Some emotional reactions, especially fears, likes, and dislikes, develop in the low road. And what we mean by the low road is the unconscious road, things that we're not aware of. The high road would be the conscious road, which we are fully aware of. So the low road, the unconscious one, through the brain skipping conscious thought. So in one study, people showed an amygdala response to certain images above and left, okay, without being aware of the image or their reaction. So what this basically means is sometimes you may even have an emotional response to something and not even aware that you had that emotional response to it. So when appraisal affects emotion, Schachter and Singer highlighted the role of appraisal in labeling emotions. This agitation is fear. Okay? So we appraise it and then we know what it is. Now with Lazarus noted a top-down cognitive appraisal. Okay, same thing. Is this a threat or something I would enjoy? Influences our emotion. Alright? But the idea is that sometimes we have an event, according to Ledoux and others, that will cause us to have an emotional response, but we may not be able to consciously be aware of it. And just to clarify, when they're imaging the brain and they see the amygdala light up, it's indicating that you're having an emotional response even though you may not be fully consciously aware of it. So here's another look at some of the theories of emotions that we've talked about so far. We have the sight of an oncoming car. That is what we perceive in our environment. Okay? Now looking at the various theories, this is what happens. So according to James Lang theory, first we have the pounding heart, the arousal. Then we see that as fear, the emotion. Cannon-Bard, we have the pounding heart, the arousal, and the fear, the emotion, happening at the same time. And the two-factor Schachter-Singer theory, we have the pounding heart, okay, and then you see what is going on. Then you say, well, I have the pounding heart, I am afraid, and then you experience the emotion of fear. Another example of the theories of emotions, just looking at them all together here, let's use the stimulus that most people are afraid of a snake. Okay? James Lang theory, they see a snake, heart is pounding, they're sweating, then they have the fear of emotion. Cannon-Bard, they see the snake, and at the same time they experience heart pounding, sweating body, and then the fear of emotion at the same time. Schachter-Singer two-factor theory. They see the snake, heart pounding, cognitive label, I am scared, then you experience the fear. Lazarus cognitive mediational model theory. Arousal, you see the snake, you appraise it as a threat or not, and then you have the fear, heart pounding, and sweating. That's the way you sort of look at it. So in a summary of the theories of emotion, we have James Lang, our awareness of our specific bodily responses to emotion arousing stimuli. Cannon Bard, we have the physiological responses, the body response, at the same time as the subjective experience. Schachter Singer, we have two factors, the generalized arousal plus a conscious cognitive label. Ladeau and others, we have the instant before cognitive appraisal. And then with Lazarus, the appraisal, is it dangerous or not? Sometimes with our awareness and sometimes not. And a couple other things about emotion. Carol Izard suggested that there are 10 basic emotions, those that are evident at birth. Okay, we have a few examples here in this particular slide. We see joy, anger, interest, disgust, surprise, sadness, and fear. I'm always particularly drawn to the fear one here. Whatever they did to that kid, I don't know. But the idea here is that these things are evident at birth, suggesting that these may be basic emotions to which we all are already programmed with when we are coming into this world. Cultural and emotional expressions are their universally recognized emotions. There seems to be some universally understood facial expressions. People of various cultures agree on the emotional labels for the expressions on the faces on the right, that we'll see in a second. People in other studies did have more accuracy judging emotions from their own culture, however. So here are two faces, another two, and the last two. So think about what you're seeing here. Are they happy? Are they sad? Are they angry? Are they afraid? Are they disgusted? Well, here are what they are. So first we have happy, then surprise, sadness, afraid, anger, and disgust. And basically what the research tends to show us is that we have certain expressions that seem to be recognizable around the entirety of the globe. So maybe they're universal to some extent, at least when it comes to humans. Now, when we look at emotion, we detect emotion, and sometimes we need to have clues or cues to determine what the emotions actually are. So what emotions do you see below? How can you tell what emotions this person here is feeling? Let me let you in on a little bit of a secret here. If you look at the faces on these pictures, the face is exactly the same. The only thing that differs is the context and the gestures and tears. So what this basically is pointing to, we sometimes will detect an emotion not based solely on what the facial expression looks like, but by the context of what's going on in that environment. And from that context, we'll see that face and see someone who maybe is angry, someone who's sad or disgusted. We also see another thing when it comes to gender. Women seem to have greater and more complex emotional expression than men do. Women are also more skilled at detecting emotions in others. However, this is an overgeneralization. People tend to attribute women's emotionality to their dispositions. It's just who they are. And attribute men's emotions to their circumstances. Well, he's in a tough place right now, and that's why he's acting all emotional. So that's the way it is, and those are biases, really. But what we do see is some emotions are seen sometimes as being more male and more female. In this particular slide, we see a gendered face, a neutral face, a non-gendered face, okay? And with this gender-neutral face, we cannot determine really whether or not this is a male or a female face. They're characteristics of both. But all we need to do in order to make this gender-neutral face look slightly more male is to make the face look more angry. And then we tend to see in the research, people see the face as a male. Linking emotions and expressive behaviors. There's something we refer to as facial feedback. If you've ever had somebody say, you should smile more, well, that has some legitimacy to it. They may be asking you to smile more, but the idea behind that is that if you smile more, you may indeed be happier. So we can link emotions and expressive behaviors called facial feedback to true emotions. So the facial feedback effect, facial position and muscle changes can alter which emotion we feel. In one study, people whose faces were moved into smiling or frowning positions experienced a change in mood. Fake a relaxed smile, you might feel better. It's not just about faces. In one experiment, even extending a one middle finger or two thumb while reading led to seeing characters with one hostility or a positive attitude. So the middle finger, they were seen as hostile. Positive attitude, where they had the thumb up. So here, the guy at the top, though forced into a smiling position, ended up feeling happier than the other guy. So we can't do anything to the other guy at the bottom, but the guy up top, by forcing his face into a smile, he experienced happiness.